if you were really good at an instrument, or like if you saw somebody butcher your favorite song in karaoke night. That's kind of what it's like to watch AMC butchering the Walking Dead comics and zombie shows in general on a week to week basis. I mean, it's just so painful because you know what they're trying to do, but it's off key, it's tone deaf, the pacing's all wrong, they don't really know all the lyrics, and they're trying so hard. And clearly they're drunk.
Defeated by delicious fruit pie.
All right. Go over to the YouTube. Manage some of these things. Live dashboard. Ooh. You can see all the pretty statistics. Still can't see myself on there yet. Oh, okay, we're actually live, even though it's on a delay, so I'm sure that you've gotten to see all that wonderfulness. Cannot believe that's still warm. All right, so we are going to get started momentarily. Are you tired? I know it's late. It's 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, so for all you Californians, it is like 5:30, so if you're tired, I have no sympathy. But for people who are in England, yeah, I feel really bad for you, but you're probably not even watching this until the morning because let's be honest, it's late. So, trending in USA, boycott Olive Garden. I mean, I've been doing that for like 15 years. I'm like the hipster of boycotting. I haven't even stepped into one of those in like 15 years. But that's just really because I don't need to live on breadsticks anymore. Not really sure why other people are doing it, but I'm sure my reason's much better and more full of justice. So, if you remember from last week, one of the things that we did was we had a special guest. We had Colin, so we're going to follow up. And actually, I'm going to send him a message and see if he's on. Just do that real quick. I had to open up my coffee because it's seriously making weird noises. So I'm going to send him a message right now and see if he is on so that he can respond to any questions that you may all have from last week's episode that you didn't get to ask. All right, so I just asked that. If you guys have any questions that you want to have thrown out there, I do have a comment that I missed from last week, and I feel bad about that, so I'm going to make sure that I have that all set up and answered to you guys. And we're going to get started. Yeah, I mean, it's about 8:32. Might as well get started. So we're going to do the official startup starting. Yeah, no. Hello, everybody. This is NEDTJ on DBDFP. We are live here on a wonderful fall-most Sunday evening. I know that it is 8:30, so all of you out there are probably wondering, why is it so late? Why can't you just do 7 o'clock like you did before when it was like, brighter out and it was brighter out later and I could hang out and sit around and talk with my friends about how amazing that last episode was out on the porch when it was still late until 9 o'clock? And to you, I say that's a very complicated question. I can't answer all of it at once, but I'm glad you asked. We are here because it is, it's nighttime. Had a busy weekend, had a busy week. We had Colin as our special guest. He made a trip to the DBDFP HQ, which is a whole bunch of letters put together. That just means that he was hanging out for the entire week, and we got a lot of material from that. Some of that will be more to come because we're going to talk about some of the YouTube videos that we looked at, some of the movies that we watched, some of the compilations from things like The Walking Dead, Alex Jones, who's that guy, the storyteller guy? Like we had a lot of interesting things that we watched over the week. So we'll go over that so we can have a nice little list, and we may even get a few t-shirts and designs out of that this week, which would be exciting because there hasn't been a new t-shirt design since the last time he was a guest on the show. If you recall, that was one where he said no because no, and that was a direct quote, and then yes because yes. So it'll be the front and the back of that shirt, and I might be able to make it reversible. It's really two different designs for me, but I think it's funny if we have two different designs for you guys to have, so you can get one for yourself and one for your friend and not be so matchy-matchy. You know what I mean? Like, who wants to be like that? So This week on Defeated by Delicious Fruit Pies, we are going to be going over any questions that you had from, last week's episode, from what you thought was interesting, what questions that you might have about what the heck we were talking about, if we were just kind of going over your head on some of this stuff, because I understand some of it was inside jokes. And then we are also going to go over some of the topics that you may have seen in the description this week. We are going to talk about Lucio Fulci's trilogy of zombie movies, because I just got to watch The City of the Living Dead, which, it's an Of the Living Dead that this guy just ripped right off. He's like, yeah, I love that George Romero guy. I think I'll rip off his half of his title and just put The City, even though it has nothing to do with the storyline that Romero set up. And it's actually, really, the zombies are not like zombies at all. We'll get into it. Anyway, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to discuss my new favorite streaming service, which is Shudder, Shudder, like Shudder, not like Shutterfly, like Shutter. And if you were looking forward to a spelling lesson on DBDFP, you're welcome. Ba-da-bum. And we're also going to discuss a new video game that I just got that is really fun and cool and rips off Dark Souls really well and does it unabashedly, which is one of my favorite ways to do things. So we have a lot to go over. We have a lot to cover this week. Before we go over all of that, it is time, of course, to discuss the mug of the week. This week it is... I'm breathing really weird into the mug, but it's Darth Vader, the mug. And it's one of my favorite mugs. I was just talking to somebody this week, and they said, well, why don't you just do this mug anyway? Because I was kind of bummed that I didn't have any really good or cool or fun Star Wars news to come out with to really talk about it and kind of make a whole theme about it. Because as I said before, this show, I don't really want to do a week by week, this is what's new in the news, this is what's coming up, and this is my opinion on the commentary of what's surrounding the video game industry or the movie industry or the comic book industry. Because obviously and honestly, it's not going to be watchable in about a month, because it won't matter. To some of you, this is never watchable, but you're not here to watch it, so I don't care about you. The people who are watching this, you could watch this now, you could watch this a year from now and show it to your friends. You could have the same conversation, and it would be relevant in the same way a year from now as it is today. If I start talking about news topics, like the fact that Marvel and Star Wars are owned by Disney, and Disney's playing really weird games with Sony right now with Spider-Man, if I went into a whole rabbit hole about that, that really won't matter to people who have seen, in 8 months when there's a new resolution, or maybe it's not resolved and the world is the way it is. This isn't going to exactly be like breathtaking information. You know what I mean? So it was suggested to me that I just bring out the mug anyway, because I like this mug. This is one of my favorite mugs. It is a perfect Darth Vader head, and it's something that I like to use when I'm doing work. Especially during the fall and the winter, I throw on the fireplace, I have this on the coffee table, and I'm doing work on a laptop, and whenever I'm just kind of trying to be lazy and get away with things, I just kind of have the mug turn a little bit this way and look at me, and then I realized that if I was working for an imperial dictator, I would just have to kind of do it, so it gets me to do a little bit more work. Not a ton, because sometimes I just want to be part of the rebellion and say, no, I'm getting off the couch, and I'm going to go do something that isn't part of your design, you freakish masked imperial jerk. But most of the time I just get back to work. He chokes me sometimes. That's a whole other story for a different day. The force is strong. The thing about mugs of the week is that, while I try to make them relevant all the time, I have some mugs that I really like. I have one with the little kittens. It looks like it's like your grandmother's mug, and I had that from weeks ago. And it just says what the hell are you looking at? And I just think that's one of the funniest things, because I could just picture that being in my grandmother's, or my mom's even. Hi, Mom. One of their cabinets. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just that it'd be funny because it's one of those old-timey mugs that you wouldn't expect to see in somebody's modern mug collection. And it's just, when you look at it really closely and has these cute, painted kittens on there, it's just what the hell are you looking at? So I will show you mugs from time to time that are not relevant. As always, we say hi to my second chair, Dr. Ocelotopus. Dr. Ocelotopus, what do you have to say to us today? Oh, the same thing. Welcome, fall. It's getting closer. I would get into a Three Doors Down song, but most of you don't know. And the ones who do would really appreciate that I don't do that. So you're welcome. I'm just trying to help you guys all out with the fall spirit, trying to get you in the mood. Not like Barry White in the mood, but more like just, pumpkin spice in the mood. Just with the colors and things that are going to start coming out. You're going to notice, and maybe you've already noticed, there are some leaves that are yellow, or just a few that fell off a tree. There's this random brown leaf on the highway, and you're like, oh, that's weird. It's already coming. You just haven't really thought about it or looked at it yet. But the colors are going to start to change very quickly, and I highly encourage that you to take a weekend, not Labor Day weekend, but take a weekend in the near future. Plan ahead to either go for a drive, go to a park, go someplace where you can actually go see the trees. If you're one of my New York City listeners, go to Central Park. Please go and take pictures and send them to me at defeatedbydeliciousfruitpies@gmail.com. I would love to post those on either our social media, or I'll just put them right on YouTube. I love to see the colors change. It does. It's a little sad because some of the plants that we like to see all summer start to fade away. Some of the flowers, some of the plants like tomatoes and things that we see all, or the mint or like basil, they start to die off. But the trade-off is you get this awesome fall smell. And in lieu of this, I do want to talk about the comment that I missed last week on our Facebook page, and I apologize to Beth. You were interacting, and I saw the first post, and I replied, but your response after was actually really funny, which was because I talked about leaf jumping, and you were saying that you're going to be doing that. I said, jumping into a big pile of leaves, you basically said was a tick bath. That is a sad and true story. And I even remember when I was a kid, where there wasn't this huge tick epidemic, I didn't want bugs crawling all over me. And, it's just weird. You're going to put a bunch of dead leaves and dirt and little mini sticks that you just raked up, and you're going to put your body into that and kind of roll around in it a little bit. And it reminds me of this video, one of the many videos that Colin and I watched, where there was this guy who is a specialist in cooking insects. So he figures out gourmet insect recipes, and he gets people to taste different ways of eating these like crickets and things. Like he's famous for making his cricket ramen bowls, which I think he said takes like 20,000 or no, maybe it was something like 2,000. I don't know. It was a lot of crickets. And that's fine. And I think it was Ali Z was talking about this. She was like making fun of this guy, but trying not to, because he's actually a really nice guy. But he is like in love with nature, and like in love in like the not okay way. And he was like dating a cockroach for over a year. Yeah. I didn't say that wrong. You didn't hear that wrong, but it's wrong. And he did it. It was a thing that happened for over a year. And then the best part was when it died, he ate it. That's just the weirdest thing. But the one thing that he did in that video was show himself like hugging and rolling in this pile of leaves. And the only thing I thought of, Beth, was your comment where you said tick bath. So I hope that he didn't get a tick bath, but I hope if he did, he picked it off. And I don't care if he eats the tick or not afterward. I just really hope that he doesn't become infatuated with the tick and get something like EEE or like, Lyme or something. Did you know that Lyme disease came from Lyme, Connecticut, where it was originally discovered? I didn't know that either. That's a useless fact. Da-da-da. There's two of those in one day. Spelling fact, nature fact. Now we just need a math fact, a history fact, and we're all set for the day. I'll work on it. Bear with me. I don't know if I'm going to do it for you, but we'll try. So moving on over, that was a nice little tangent. I didn't even plan on telling you about the cockroach guy, but he's just so weird that I figured I would talk about it. Moving on to Lucio Fulci. I'm probably not even saying his name right, and all of my Italian listeners, you can get on and just berate me for that. That's fine. But he obviously made one of my favorite zombie movies called Zombie. I don't know how nobody else used this title, but he got Zombie. Even White Zombie, like one of the first movies, one of the first horror movies that dealt with a zombie, it was called White Zombie, and it was more about like a ghoul, basically, not really a zombie. So this Italian zombie filmmaker waited until the second movie in his Zombie Trilogy to name a movie Zombie. Like, even the Cranberries came up with the name Zombie for a song, mostly because that was every other word in it. But in this movie, it's literally what is in the movie is just zombies, which, I don't like to speak poorly of the dead, but, Romero could have thought of that. Night of the Living Dead is a mouthful. Zombie, that's pretty simple. And if anybody ever asks you, oh, what's that about? You can just smack them upside the head. It's great. Night of the Living Dead I mean, House of a Thousand Corpses, that's not about zombies. So how is Night of the Living Dead necessarily a zombie movie? It is now because of the zeitgeist. We understand that Night of the Living Dead is about the zombie apocalypse, but had Romero not named it that, had he named it something else like The Flowers That Come Up in the Day, I don't know, we would just assume, oh, that means it's a zombie movie because, they're pushing up daisies. But it's not. That's what we say, Night of the Living Dead. But why didn't he just name it Zombie? So here comes this guy, this Lucio guy, and he's like, Super Lucio, and he's going to come in and be like, I got an idea for a movie name, Zombie. So he's a very smart man. And what he decided was that was going to be the second movie in a trilogy, the first of which I think was, in the English interpretation, City of the Living Dead, which was, the premise of this is that there is a couple of people who are trying to stop the gates of hell from staying open after a priest dies who was guarding the gates of hell. I mean, you wouldn't know this from watching the movie, but that's what it's about. And already we're hearing a little bit of a different story, because in Romero's Night of the Living Dead, he says specifically that when there's no more room in hell, the dead shall walk the earth, right? That is the idea, that it's hell is full. They put the little no vacancy sign on, and then, the dead people just kind of like, I guess, just come back to earth, I don't know. I'll hitchhike my way to some other hell. And so they do, and that's where all the zombies come from. In this movie, it's like intentionally, and I don't want to give spoilers, but the movie's really old, and it's also not that great, so I don't feel too bad about spoiling it. But in the beginning, this priest doesn't say anything. He seems really sad. And then you see him with a rope, and then you see him near a tree, and that's when you start to get a feeling that this isn't going to go well for him. But he commits suicide, obviously. But that's what starts the gates of hell opening up. And it just doesn't really explain that well in the movie. And then there's this guy who just is so annoying, and he says something like, in 48 hours, the dead are going to come back. He just sounds really, really obnoxious. But the idea is that they have 48 hours before this, and he says, that what's so funny about it is it's 2 days until Halloween, right? Or All Saints Day, if you look at the Catholic religious calendar. And so, but this was not like unknown. It's not like All Saints Day is this like crazy name of a day that nobody's ever heard of. And he's like, we have 48 hours until this All Saints Day. And he comes off with this tone of like, whatever that is. And then they go stop the evil priest now, apparently, because he's a ghost, which is the other thing. It's not really a zombie movie. This priest is like on a noose, and then he's like, boom, boom, like teleporting. Like he's like bamfing from place to place. So we got Nightcrawler that like, who's also Catholic. Maybe that's where Nightcrawler came from. Maybe. Probably not. And I'm not even really sure how those timelines work together. The point is, this guy was like Nightcrawler in that he was also a priest. He was a little freaky, and he would make your eyes bleed if you made him mad. The only difference was everybody made him mad, and when he bamfed, there was no bamf cloud. He just like disappeared and then reappeared in front of you and then stared at you until your eyes bled, and then you literally, there's a scene where anyway, I'm not going to ruin that part. That's actually one of the cooler parts in the movie. But it doesn't really feel like a zombie movie. But it's the first of a trilogy of zombie movies. So now, obviously, I have to find the shell-cased VHS of that. So I'm working on that. If you know anybody who has the VHS of The City of the Living Dead, you can write in to defeatedbydeliciousfruitpies@gmail.com. You may or may not be compensated, but one of the things I can be assured of for you is that you're going to get recognized in one of our episodes. So, I don't know. I might watch the third one. Probably not. I mean, probably, but I'm not going to like go out and watch it. If it's on Shudder, though, I will probably watch it. And I'm not sure that it is, but I'm going to look it up. Shudder, great segue, is this new streaming service it's like a Netflix of specifically horror and thriller and suspense movies. So basically most of what I use Netflix for, especially now that I have The Office on DVD. I really love it. It's really cool. It's only, when you sign up for the year, it's only like $4.74 a month for the subscription, which is a lot better than almost $20 a month. And for me, an avid, terrible movie watcher and somebody who is always looking for horror movies to watch that I haven't seen before, this really seemed like it was promising. Now, it had a week-long trial, which is going to be over for me Tuesday or Wednesday, which I'm obviously going to renew. I'm hooked. I think it's great. But let me walk you through this because I'm skeptical of all things that have free trials, because usually what a trial is it's something to make you get a new auto payment that it takes you like 4 hours to cancel, and it's really hard. So I was skeptical, and I looked around at like the list of things on this service, www.shudder, shudder.com. They're not giving me anything for this. And if they did, I wouldn't change being critical of them, honestly. But they had a lot of Freddy Krueger movies and no Jason movies, and they didn't have the 1990 Night of the Living Dead. So, at first I'm kind of turned off. I'm like, wait, what kind of a horror service is this we got running here anyway? And then I looked it up. I looked up some information, but it's a legitimate service. It is produced by AMC, which, if you don't know, I can't help you, but they made The Walking Dead, which, as we talked about last time, is not my favorite show, but it is also not my least favorite show. And hey, I watched it for more than 2 seasons, so it passed some of my muster. But AMC does horror well. It really does. And Fear the Walking Dead, I actually really liked as well, up until I think the 3rd season. It kind of got a little slow. And I didn't like that they were focusing even more on the human aspect of it. I really liked that we were getting reset back to not understanding the zombies and how do we survive this. And, then it just turned more the Breaking Bad route. So, just as all great things tend to disappoint you when it comes to television, because, Game of Thrones, Lost, Dexter, The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead. I could go on. Just like all TV shows end up being really kind of formulaic and boring, except for the X-Files and The Office and Firefly, but that's because it only had a season. Not even. There are, these things that a company or a production company is good at. So we know HBO is good at producing original content. It just is. I mean, there's a lot of really great shows. I can't hold that against them. They're a great production company. So is AMC. So they have some original content in there that I thought, I'll look up some of this stuff and we'll see how it goes. One of the shows that's on there is called Nosferatu, but it's the name is like it would be on a license plate. So it's Nos, N-O-S, the number 4, the letter A, and then the number 2, Nosferatu. So that's kind of fun. I like that. Nosferatu is one of my favorite vampire movies of all time, and the one that had John Malkovich in it was also amazing when they redid it. So I really, really enjoy that name for it. But I mean, it was just kind of funny because the way it looked. It had the actor who plays Sylar in Heroes, who's also Spock in the new Star Trek series. I don't care about his real name, but he is a really good actor. Like, he's a really, really good villain. I loved him as Sylar in the beginning of Heroes, and then they ruined him. But he was really good in the beginning, and he's much more like he is in the first season of Heroes. He's just very diabolical, very complex, very interesting, and very convinced that he's fine and he's doing the right thing. But the beginning, like the cover of this, looks so bad that I was like, this is going to be hilarious. We're going to see how bad their original content is. So Colin and I throw that up on the screen, and it's actually really well done. And it's based on a best-selling novel, apparently, that is of the same name. And I guess John Hill or Jim Hill wrote it. I don't know. You can look it up. That's up to you. I'm not putting a link in the description because I'm not that kind of guy. It is really well done. The writing's excellent. The directing's very good. The music is not crazy. It's very appropriate. And they just make you really drawn into this world very quickly, but they don't make things happen right away. There's a little bit of a delay, and then they kind of get things moving after they really solidify characters for you. So it's written well. Like, it's written like Game of Thrones first couple seasons well, and the directing is just really nice. So I was kind of into the original content, but I'm like, I'm not going to just pay $5 a month for one show that I'm sure I could find by sailing the high seas. So I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Not that I endorse sailing the high seas, but it's a thing that people would do at some time in their lives if they were not able to procure certain things of media in nature legitimately. So I looked again. I'm finding all these other movies, and there's these really bad titles, like some things that I've never seen. And then I come across this movie, The Prince of Darkness. And I'm like, well, this looks pretty cheese. So obviously I looked into the description, and it was a John Carpenter movie. And hopefully, as you know by now, I love John Carpenter. I love almost everything John Carpenter has done. I just recently bought a VHS that is a John Carpenter's version of Creepshow. It's called Body Bags, and it's just different little vignettes, little stories that he wrote and directed, and it's just awesome. And I can't believe I didn't know about it until this year. So this movie I also had never seen before. I think John Carpenter, I think like John Carpenter's vampires. Bow, bow, bow. You know, like movies where he writes and directs them, produces them, and writes the musical score for them. This is one of those movies. Like he wrote the music for this one too. And it doesn't disappoint, but it's a lot less cheesy than the John Carpenter's Vampires. And it's an older movie too. And I'm watching this movie. It has a bunch of no-name people, but it's just it's so weird and it's so well done. And it has these like homeless people slash zombie people, and it has this crazy ancient lore about like Satan and Jesus and how they all play together and how everything's been a trick, and like it's really really crazy. And like it just does everything so well. And I'm watching this movie, I'm like, how have I never seen this movie before? Where it's put together, it has a clear storyline, and it ends well. Like it's just it's a really neat idea. It deals with quantum physics in like the 80s. Like we weren't even really talking about that until like 1999. And here's John Carpenter like, oh, I'm gonna throw that in there too, and talking about how that fits into this whole thing. And oh, by the way, Alice Cooper is an actor in the movie, playing like one of the head homeless people in it. Alice Cooper. Like, how does John Carpenter get Alice Cooper to do a movie? Like, it was really, really cool. It was very nice to be able to watch that movie. And for it to be highlighted on the service for me, that really kind of did it. That was the final nail in the coffin. So I started watching that. And then there were a ton of other terrible movies. Like, I watched this Imp-like movie that had just... It was basically like The Gate or like The Wishmaster. You make wishes, they go to crap, and it's really an evil character that just seems good at first. But it's something called like Sorority Babes and Nerds at the like Slimy Bowl-a-thon or something. Like it's just this ridiculous name. So I'm like, yeah, gotta watch that. So I watched it. It was hilarious. It was all the things I wanted it to be in a cheesy 80s horror movie. Just really gross and like really self-aware and funny. And then there was another movie called Next of Kin that I had never seen either, and it was really, really slow. And I think it was an older British movie about like more of a suspense. It wasn't really a horror, but it plays itself off as a horror movie and even like a cult satanic kind of horror movie. But it turns out not really to be that. It's really a psychological thriller, and it pays off really well at the end. I actually recommend you watching it. Next of Kin, totally worth your time. It's just really fun. So don't be afraid to get through some of the boring parts of it. Some of the stuff just doesn't really make a ton of sense. But I mean, it can't be worse than some of the other movies that we've all seen together or that I've recommended to you. You know, like any Peter Jackson movies that I may have recently mentioned to you. Bad taste. The coffee tastes great. I'm talking about the movie Bad Taste, but you already knew that. If you were watching last week's episode, if you weren't, shame on you. What are you even doing watching this episode? Go back and watch last week's episode. You'll see what I'm talking about, and then you'll enjoy this week's episode even more. Although, really happy to see everybody liking and showing up on this. Oh, by the way, please like and comment and subscribe. I know that sounds so stupid, and I hate when I see other people say that on live streams and on videos. But honestly, like if you like the video, it helps the algorithm, and it makes it so it's more likely that people who are watching other things that are related to this and topic, that this will show up for them. If there are no likes and there are no comments or interactions with these live streams or videos, it really doesn't go anywhere. Like YouTube really has cracked down, and they've been really clear about their algorithms cracking down on individual content creators. So they're really kind of into big companies, but there's still room for small, tiny little channels like us, which by the way, we're up to over 1,700 subscribers, which happened like literally like overnight. Like we had almost 1,460 last week, and we are cruising to 2,000 now in just a week. So we're tiny. We're still tiny. I'm not going to, like, obviously we're tiny, but we could actually grow and become something of a thing. We could be a thing, you know, on YouTube if you like all the videos when you watch them, if you comment on them whenever you can, and you share them with other people, like links, and be like, haha, look what I saw, and you get other people to subscribe. That organic growth is not so common with channels. Honestly, it's just not. There are millions of channels, but there are not millions of channels that have slow and steady growth and lots of likes and comments on all the videos. There are actually very few channels, like very small percentage of channels like that. So you can help this live stream by liking it or commenting on it, as well as if you're watching this later on and it's a video, by doing the same. So I wanted to kind of give more of a spiel on that rather than just say, ooh, like, comment, and subscribe, and share. It really does help, and it would be fun to do that. So let's see how big we can get this thing. So anyway, getting into this movie, it's kind of fun, and it's good, and it has some suspense. I do recommend going and watching. It's Next of Kin. So moving on to the video game world, because obviously we got to talk about video games, and we still need to find something. Oh, so your history thing about the day is that we talked about quantum physics and things in this John Carpenter movie, but that was a few decades before it became mainstream to talk about quantum science and quantum physics and things like that. So that's your history lesson. I'm gonna dual that for like science lesson, and I think that covers us for like your all your subject matter. And a psychological thriller is next of kin. So I even hit one of your electives. So there you go. And I talked about a musical score by John Carpenter, so you got your music credit. We're hitting up all of the things before you go back to school. If you're going back to school, if you're not, and you're like us and you work all the time, it's not impressive when summer comes, but it's also not as depressing when summer ends. Unless you're one of those freaks that likes to melt and get heat stroke and sunburn and ticks. Remnant is a really cool game, and it came out for the PC like a month and a half ago. But it's now out for all the big, not all, the two big consoles. It's out for Xbox One and it's out for the PS4. I looked for the physical copy of it after I watched a review video on Kotaku, which we haven't talked about Kotaku a lot lately just because they're awful. And they're very biased, and they are obviously being paid by certain companies and not by others. And they're very easily swayed, honestly, by a lot of really dumb things. What struck my attention and kept it for an hour on this review was how honest it was. It was a great video game review. It made me feel like, wow, I should probably go back and give them another chance, because their review was raw, it was honest, it was just simple gameplay from a person who is honest and likes to talk about how they enjoy things about video games. Like she said, the shooting feels good, like the battle mechanics, like the fighting feels good, and she even's like, I know that's like a really like kind of useless thing to say, that it feels good, because how do you really describe that? And I understand what she means, because I have a hard time describing that sometimes too when I talk about fluidity in game mechanics, responsiveness, speed, and like how easy almost it is to maneuver and shoot and aim where you want to aim, move where you want to move, and not get locked in to like kind of stupid physics in combat for games. And so it was just nice to see a refreshing video game review. It was really nice. So you can go back and watch on Kotaku.com their video review of Remnant, Rise from the Ashes, or From the Ashes. I mean, you'll find it if you just put Remnant, because it's getting more and more popular as literally as the days go on, because I just got this weekend and it's already taken off. Like, people are really into this game. So let me talk about this game really briefly. There are no spoilers because I know like nothing about this game in terms of storyline. Here's what I know. It is a Dark Souls clone only in its basic mechanics. What I mean by that is that it has an Estus flask. Like, it has they call them dragon hearts in this game, where you have a limited number of them. You can upgrade them, and you can also gain more of them. You start out with 3 after you finish the tutorial. So you use that and it refills your health. In the beginning of the game, obviously it refills all of it because you suck and you don't have much health at all. But I'm sure as you go along, you'll upgrade that and then it'll refill more of your health at once. There is a giant like crystal stone, which is basically your bonfire. You can go to it, it refills all your health, it restores your status, and it refills your mana. And it refills your ammo in this game because there's guns. It's much more like Bloodborne like that, and not so much like Dark Souls, but not like in the bad ways that Bloodborne kind of is like really not fun at all, and you have to cheese all the enemies even in the first part of the game. I don't get into that in a second, but in the sense that there's a primary weapon, there's your secondary weapon. Those are both guns that have limited ammunition and are upgradable and have different slots that you can put different runes almost in. And I forget what they're called in there, but they basically runes or like materia. Like, you want to go with a Final Fantasy VII reference, which why not? Who doesn't? But then there's a melee weapon as well, and the melee weapon is different depending on one of the 3 classes you pick. Of your 3 classes, it's much like Hunt Showdown. Your characters look very much like old school Civil War clothing, like dusters and jackets and like hats, and like the one guy is like a gas mask, which I guess isn't really like Hunt, but it's really cool like that. But the storyline is in this backdrop of like Fallout. Like, it's a very post-apocalypse, but like post 1950s, maybe even 60s or 70s, where the end of the world happened like a couple decades ago, but it was during modern time. So it's not like, in Dark Souls, it's not castles and stuff you're running around. You're running around like subways and things like that. It's almost like maybe a Metro 2033, which is a really neat take on that background. So yeah, it's like Dark Souls like that, and the enemies respawn when you go to the bonfire, the crystal thing, and you can save and you can go back to the base area, which is more like Bloodborne. You can go back to like that base area to upgrade and buy different things. But when you pick up items, you actually don't lose those when you die, which is nice. And there's not a souls mechanic where you lose the souls when you die. And from what I can tell, you don't lose the currency in game either when you die. So it's not really penalizing you so much for dying, which makes it much more fun to like run and push and like test areas out and like see how many enemies there are in an area. And oh no, I died. I think I'll go back and try that again. So the trial and error is not so painful in this, so it makes it run a lot faster. And it's also multiplayer online co-op, not combat. So you can have up to 3 people playing online on one server at a time. The other thing is that it randomly generates the world. So it's not the same world. You won't hit the same enemies in the same combination, in the same format. You won't find items in the same places, depending on if you, and you can re-roll your own server. So if you don't like how it starts out, there's literally a thing where you can press a button to re-roll that server. It's really, really neat. The randomization makes it really fun. It's very expandable. Like I can see a lot of DLC coming out for this game. It was only $40 online, which I hate that it's digital only. And if it comes out in a physical medium, I will buy that. In my personal opinion, I think that we're killing the gaming industry. We're killing the used industry for gaming whenever we're not buying used. So try to get it on physical if you can. But in the meantime, the digital version is really fun. So you can play with your friends. You don't have to play with your friends. But it will make it obviously easier. But the bosses look insane. The main enemy is called the Root, so that's kind of it gives you that as a storyline in the basic, like what is the Root, where did it come from, and it's basically put humanity on the brink of extinction. So check it out, Remnant, something about the ashes or Rise from the Ashes. I don't know. You can find it though. Like I said, like if you don't know Google's a thing and you can't put in Remnant, like honestly, just get out. But like seriously, get out. So those are all the main topics that I wanted to talk about this week. If there are any specific things that you would like to drop into the comment section right now, I am also going to check a couple of the emails that I got this week. And as I said, I don't want to miss another comment like I did last week with Beth. So let me know about that. Let me just grab an email. All right, so... Oh, the other thing, I am going to be doing a Labor Day special. If you have a specific topic that you'd like me to talk about for Labor Day, or how the heck we can talk about DBDFP, defeating pies, deliciousness, whatever you want about Labor Day, let me know. I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to pick the topic, and then you're stuck with it like you were this week. So that you can send that defeatedbydeliciousfruitpies@gmail.com, or you can just send that in the comment section when you watch this video, when it's live or not. And oh, okay, here we go. Here is one email about... You guys suck. I love The Walking Dead. Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't love The Walking Dead, but I just hate it. It's like you ever have something where you see like somebody play like your favorite instrument, like if you were really good at an instrument, or like if you saw somebody butcher your favorite song in karaoke night. That's kind of what it's like to watch AMC butchering the Walking Dead comics and zombie shows in general on a week-to-week basis. I mean, it's just so painful because you know what they're trying to do, but it's off-key, it's tone-deaf, the pacing's all wrong, they don't really know all the lyrics, and they're trying so hard, and clearly they're drunk. It's just like that. So go home, AMC, you're drunk. But yeah, I respect your opinion. I just completely disagree with it, and I think a little less of you as a person. But, all right, what else do we have here? What's going on in the comic book world? Not a lot. The only thing that I know in the comic book world right now, and again, I don't want to date this video, is that DC is kind of collapsing. Like, the comic books are kind of collapsing. And I'm amazed, honestly, that they're here still, and to not be too time-centric. In the early 2000s, they were going digital. So they were trying to sell Batman, Superman, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, and all that stuff online. And that was a huge mistake, because how hard is it to pirate that? Like, it's so easy to just, it's literally pictures. It's a comic book, dude. Like, people just put up pictures all the time of copywritten material. And yeah, you're right. You won't be able to put that up on a YouTube video or like selling something, but like Google Images doesn't care. I could post every comic book for free on a Google image search, and you could have searched it. And people did this. Like, I have a friend who downloaded every comic that was on DC. He had them all on a USB stick. And that was when I knew it was kind of the end for DC, because what they did was they gave up on the physical medium. They gave up. They didn't believe in it anymore. And I think that was short-sighted. I think that in the short run, still today, I believe this, that still today, physical comic books are not as attractive as digital medium. So, like, you know, the Marvel Universe movies and like the cartoon series and like the comic books that you can get online, the attractions, I think all of that is much more attractive right now. But in the context of the fact that it has all become so normalized, like, comic book culture is so for the normies now. Like, everybody knows about comic book characters. Like, there's going to be a Black Panther 2 coming out. Nobody even knew who the Black Panther was in the 90s. Like, who was that guy? What? Something about what? Vibranium? What are you talking about? Basically, that would get you called a nerd. That's it. Now it's like, oh, I can't wait for that movie to come out. I love The Lion King too. Like, it's so normalized. So in that context, yeah, comic books are less desirable. But for comic book readers, the readership has declined because the companies lost faith in the readers, not because the readers lost faith in the comic book companies, although that then happened as a consequence. So for the companies like Dark Horse and other comic book companies that are like up and coming, they understand that people want, that real readers, real people who enjoy comic books, which is a small audience, it's a niche market, but those people will enjoy comic books no matter what. If you produce a good comic, if you make a good series that's interesting and has cliffhangers,
DBDFP double down, down,
animation,
down,
like
down.
great pictures, great artwork, people are gonna buy it. These people, we're looking for interesting stories, and people like to be cool. Even nerds like to be cool. We like to have things that other people don't. We like to know stories that other people don't know, and it's neat to get that small little part of the market that people like us always have gone to be able to kind of talk to each other about these things as a litmus test for how like nerdy you really are and what you really do know. That'll still be there, and that will grow and grow. And I think we're already just starting to see that with some independent comic books. You're going to see a lot of that. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. And I might even have a guest that I could get to come on to talk about this, because he is an independent comic book creator who's been very successful. So we'll see. But, you know, fingers crossed that I get him. But these companies like DC, they didn't see the long game. What's happening with digital media in general is that everybody's getting oversaturated. We're all getting oversaturated with everything. I mean, it's almost like there are 1.5 million YouTube videos about somebody talking about nerd culture. So the market's flooded. And in Marvel fatigue is a thing. And comic book movies are going to wind down. If not in their production, because it's Disney, definitely in their box office sales. They're going to decline. And as those start to go down and down and down, nerd culture is fading out. It really is fading out. I see this already. I see this in this generation of kids. It's all about not being impressed, not getting excited, you know, the opposite of nerd culture. And so we're getting back to a place where the more mundane, boring, stupid, low IQ forms of entertainment are going to take over. And the things that were really higher brow and things that required more of a different sense of humor, more sarcastic, a little bit more biting, a little quicker, and things that are a little goofy and ridiculous and maybe even a little like embarrassing to watch, those things are going to really shrink back down. But they're not going to go away. They're actually, in a way, going to become more lucrative for the few companies that have stayed with it. They stayed tried and true. They stuck with the market, and they stuck with their audience, because those people are never going away. And they're going to have kids, and their kids are going to have friends. And there's going to be a whole new generation of kids that think they're cool, even though they get picked on at school, because they like something that nobody else knows about. And as they sit in their room and play physical D&D, because that's going to stay a thing, guarantee you that's going to stay a thing, or they're playing Magic the Gathering physically, not online, they're going to have their comic books that they trade and talk about and laugh about together quietly so that they don't get picked on or beat up. It's just, that's the cycle of life. I see it happening. DC fell off the wagon on this, but it was their fault for losing faith in their own brand and in their own fans. So that's the news with comic books. Is, you know, maybe this won't happen this year, maybe it'll be in 3 or 4 years, but I see DC actually going out of business or being bought out by, honestly, like Dark Horse. That would be hilarious. Or Marvel, because why not? You know, and then they win. They won the war, but that's really, they lost the war way before, because they got bought out by Disney. And anytime you take a knee to the mouse, you're pretty much going to get swallowed up. So, good play. You tried, you failed. The lesson is never try. That's not the real lesson. And I really hope that comic book companies keep trying to come out with new independent things and new IPs, please. We're kind of sick of all the same old characters. Superman. Superman. For a long time. But, who am I to say? I still drink coffee out of a Darth Vader mug. All right, that brings us to a conclusion to another great episode, hopefully, of Defeated by Delicious Fruit Pies. I am, as always, NEDTJ on DBDFP, and I am signing off. Suckas, have a great week. See you on Labor Day. It'll be Sunday, though. We're going to do a Sunday. I'm not going to do this on Monday. Later.
Defeated.
DBDFP double down, 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 down.